The morning my life cracked open didn't begin with thunder. It began with sunlight, soft, warm, innocent. My name is Victoria Hale. I'm 30 years old, and on that quiet Thursday morning, I thought I was 2 weeks away from the happiest day of my life. Our apartment was still filled with scraps of wedding planning, color swatches taped to the fridge, little sample candles on the counter, the mock-up of our invitation sitting neatly on the table with Victoria and Andrew printed in gold. I remember thinking how surreal it felt, how lucky, how ready. Then his phone buzzed. Just once. A tiny vibration against our marble countertop, a sound I'd heard 1,000 times before. I almost didn't look. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't suspicious. I was stirring oat milk into my coffee, half thinking about the seating chart. But the screen lit up bright in the morning light. Marissa Redhart. Last night was a mistake, but God, what a mistake. My hand froze on the spoon. The world didn't slow. It simply stopped, like someone had pressed a thumb against my windpipe. The spoon slipped from my fingers, hitting the edge of the mug with a dull clink. I felt heat crawl up my neck, a flush of cold panic spreading through my chest. Marissa Redhart, his ex. His complicated ex, the one he insisted never really meant anything, the one he'd only stayed friends with for the sake of closure. My stomach flipped violently. Almost without thinking, I picked up the phone. His password was the date of our anniversary, the little ritual he'd insisted on. Romantic, sentimental, now suddenly nauseating. The lock screen opened instantly, and then the world became text bubbles. Marissa, 2 more weeks and you're all mine. Marissa, can you really go through with marrying the stable girl? Marissa, she's sweet, sure, but she's not you. Not really you. Andrew, I know. It's killing me. I'm stuck talking about mortgage rates with her like I'm already dead inside. Everything warm inside me dissolved. 5 years. 5 years of holidays, vacations, shared dreams, little rituals. 5 years of believing I was building a future with a man who loved me. My heart hammered so loudly it drowned out the coffee grinder, the ticking of the clock, even my own breath. And then the front door opened. V, I'm home. You will not believe the deal I got on those miniature champagne bottles, practically gave them away. His voice light, excited, utterly unaware, floated into the kitchen. I didn't move. He entered with 2 bags in his arms and a flushed, triumphant grin on his face. He set the bags on the table with a rustle, then froze when he finally noticed me. V, what's wrong? I turned the phone toward him, the screen glowing with his betrayal. His face drained of color. For a moment we just stared at each other, suspended in a terrible silence. Not the loud silence of anger, something colder, something final. Who is Marissa? I whispered. My voice didn't even sound like mine. His panic was instant, wild, frantic. V, it's really not what you think. She's being weird, okay? She's been obsessed for a while. This is nothing. Seriously. Nothing. Last night was a mistake, but God, what a mistake. My jaw tightened. I could barely feel my hands. Andrew, I said quietly. Were you with her last night? His mouth opened, closed. Then came the excuses, messy, desperate. It was a work thing. A celebration. I had too much to drink. She kissed me first. I didn't want to, but it was just a moment of weakness. It meant nothing. Weakness. Nothing. Every word made something inside me calcify. I felt myself withdraw, like my soul was stepping back while my body stayed frozen. And then he said it. The line that severed something permanent between us. Victoria, don't ruin the wedding. Not. I'm sorry. I hurt you. I made a horrible mistake. No, just don't ruin the wedding. His eyes glistened, frantic and entitled all at once. Please, V. We've planned this for a year. My mom is already stressed. The vendors, the guests, please, don't do this to us. Us! I stared at this man, my fiancé, and saw him clearly for the first time in years. He wasn't fighting for me. He was fighting for the performance. And I was done performing. I placed his phone gently back on the counter, as carefully as if it were something toxic. He reached for me, but I stepped back. The motion was small, but it broke him. I watched panic swallow his expression. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. A strange calm washed over me, icy, steady, precise. Without a word, I walked past him down the hallway into my office. I closed the door softly. The click of the latch felt like a full stop at the end of a chapter. I stood there in silence, heart pounding, palms trembling. The pain was beyond tears. It was too deep for sound. But clarity came sharp as glass. I sat at my desk, opened a blank page, and began making a list. Not dreams, not vows. A plan. 1. Pack essentials. 2. Contact my best friend Danielle. 3. Cancel my half of the wedding. 4. Change honeymoon tickets. 5. Write the letter. With every item I typed, my heart steadied. This wasn't escape. This was rebirth. I picked up my phone and dialed Danielle. She answered halfway through the first ring. V, everything okay? No, I whispered, but it will be. Her voice sharpened instantly. Tell me what happened. And for the first time that morning, I exhaled. Danny, Andrew cheated. A quiet breath on the other end. Then I'll be there in 10 minutes. Don't open the door unless it's me. I closed my eyes, letting the calm settle into my bones. The woman who woke up this morning was dead. And the woman who sat here now, steady, cold, determined, was about to save her own life. Danielle didn't speak at first. When she walked into her apartment with me trailing behind her like a hollow shadow, she just reached out, squeezed my hand, and nodded. It was enough. I didn't need comfort. I needed clarity, and I had it. We started packing the moment we stepped inside her place. My suitcases were already in her car, but there were still a few essentials I had to grab from our office calendar, my work bag chargers, my makeup kit, things that filled the spaces of my daily life. Danielle moved with silent precision beside me, handing me clothes, folding what I couldn't bring myself to touch. I'm not going back there, I murmured, mostly to remind myself. You're not, she said. You're moving forward. When everything I needed was zipped away, she exhaled softly. Okay. You ready? No. Yes. It didn't matter. I nodded. We drove back to the apartment at sunrise. The building was quiet, the hallway still and echoing. I opened the door with my key as quietly as possible. Andrew was asleep on the couch, curled on his side like a child, his phone in his hand, even in his dreams, as if he was already trying to reach someone who could save him. I walked into the kitchen, pulled out a sheet of paper, wrote the 4 sentences with a hand that didn't tremble anymore. Andrew, I will not be attending the wedding. You made your choice. I've made mine, Victoria. I placed the note beside the coffee machine, the place where our mornings started, the place where our mornings ended. Then I left. Danielle drove me directly to the airport that afternoon. No hesitation, no tears, no goodbye text, nothing. I kept my eyes forward as I moved through security, clutching my passport like the last anchor to a life that finally belonged to me again. When the plane took off, the jolt of ascent felt like a cord snapping clean between past and future. I watched the city shrink below me until it blurred into a soft smear of color and light. I didn't feel grief. I didn't feel anger, only an expanding quiet like space opening inside my chest. Bali felt like stepping into a dream someone else made for me, but somehow exactly what I needed. The air was warm and fragrant, thick with salt and flowers. My resort sat perched on a cliff overlooking a glittering sea. It felt ancient, peaceful, untouched by weddings, expectations, or men who made promises they couldn't keep. And so, on the morning I was supposed to be a bride, I sat on a lounge chair, watching the sun rise over the ocean. Each wave rolled in with a softness that made my heart ache in the gentlest way. I wrapped my fingers around a cup of strong Balinese coffee and let the warmth soak into me. Then my phone lit up. Unknown number, 29 missed calls. I ignored it and took a long, slow sip. Another notification. A message from a number I didn't recognize. His mother. You owe us an explanation. Call me immediately. I set the phone down like it was something poisonous. The breeze was light. The horizon was turning from gold to pink. Somewhere behind me, someone played a bamboo flute. More messages came. His sister, his aunt, one bridesmaid, 3 numbers I didn't know, someone from his family group chat, blame disguised as concern, accusations disguised as confusion, not one message offering me the slightest humanity. I turned the phone face down again. Then it buzzed once more, a name I welcomed. Danielle, they are absolutely losing it. My smile was small but real. She sent updates in bursts. Guests were milling around with confusion. The venue coordinator was sweating through her blazer. Andrew's mother was yelling at the florist. The band refused to set up because half the payment was missing. People were whispering, wondering where I was, wondering what he did. Another message. He's crying in the groom's room. His mom keeps saying you're unstable. This is wild. A strange, distant amusement flickered in me. Not satisfaction, just the bitter comedy of predictable people behaving predictably. Then Danielle wrote again. V. He's walking out, alone, and he's holding your letter. I closed my eyes for a moment, let the ocean fill my ears. Another message. He's trying to explain. It's bad, really bad. Someone asked loudly, "What did you do?" Everyone heard it. His mom is freaking out. The phone rang. I didn't have to check the screen to know. I answered. I didn't speak. Victoria, please, please, Andrew begged, his voice splintering. Just come back. Everyone is here. My parents, my family, people traveled for this. You're humiliating me. Humiliating him. A soft laugh escaped me before I could stop it. The waves drowned it instantly. We can work on us later, he said. We can fix everything later. Please, just get through today. There it was again, the performance, the illusion, the script he wanted me to play along with. Not love, not remorse, not grief for losing me. Just panic that the show had collapsed without its lead actress. I let him breathe hard into the phone for a moment, the sound of his world cracking in the background. Then I spoke. Andrew, I said softly, calmly, with a clarity that tasted like freedom. I'm not ruining the wedding. He made a small, desperate sound like hope. You did. I hung up, blocked the number, stood, walked down to the shoreline, let the warm water touch my feet, sand swirling around my ankles, like a gentle reminder that the earth keeps moving. I breathed in deeply. The ocean smelled clean. My heart felt light. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt my life returning to me slowly like the tide. I returned from Bali with skin a few shades warmer and a heart several shades quieter. If someone had looked at me at the airport hair-loose steps, unhurried, suitcase rolling behind me, they would have never guessed that 2 weeks earlier I had detonated a wedding. Danielle picked me up, waving wildly from her car window. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't need to. I slid into the passenger seat and exhaled the kind of breath that only comes after walking out of a burning house without looking back. You look good, she said, starting the engine. I feel clean, I replied, and it was true. Back at her place, I settled into the spare room again. A temporary nest. A quiet landing place. In the evenings, she poured wine and sprawled on the couch beside me while we watched trashy reality shows and pretended none of this had ever happened. I didn't cry. I didn't rant. I didn't reread the texts. The storm had already passed. All that was left was the news coverage of the wreckage, and Danielle was more than willing to be my reporter. It started with a voicemail from an unfamiliar number. I nearly ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. It was the bridesmaid Jessica. Her voice was soft, trembling with the kind of pity people mistake for compassion. Victoria, I don't know if I should tell you this, but that woman Marissa, she ghosted him. The day after the wedding disaster. She apparently told him she didn't want the drama. And then she got transferred to another office. I just thought you should know. I listened twice, not because I cared, but because it was almost surreal. The same woman he nearly destroyed our lives for vanished. The second things became inconvenient. Danielle burst into laughter when I told her. Then she shook her head. Karma's not subtle, she said. The updates didn't stop. At work, he was a walking scandal. His affair had technically happened with a subordinate. The HR violation alone was enough to jeopardize his job. Add the public humiliation, the meltdown, the whispers. A perfect storm. Within a week of my return, Danielle came home with eyes sparkling like she'd heard the juiciest gossip ever. Guess who was quietly asked to resign? I didn't even pretend to be surprised. Let me guess, Andrew. I'm the victim. Carlson. She nodded smugly. Apparently, he's been telling people he had a mental breakdown before the wedding. Sure, buddy. A mental breakdown named Marissa. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. His fall wasn't satisfying. It wasn't painful. It wasn't even compelling. It was just predictable, the natural outcome of bad decisions compounding on each other. Then came the email. I recognized the sender instantly. Linda Carlson, his mother. The subject line read, "A mother's plea." Danielle groaned when she saw the name pop up. Oh, I have to see this. I opened it. Victoria. I am writing to you as a heartbroken mother. What you did to my son was unforgivably cruel. You humiliated him in front of everyone he loves. Andrew has suffered greatly for your actions. He has lost his job, his reputation, and his stability. Despite this, he is still in love with you. He needs you now more than ever. A real woman stands by her partner in times of difficulty. I am begging you to call him. You can still salvage what remains. Please do the right thing. Linda. I stared at the email for a long moment. Not one sentence acknowledged his betrayal. Not one sentence mentioned the affair. Only entitlement, rewritten history, and guilt dripping from every line. I clicked delete without typing a single word. Danielle's jaw dropped. That's it. You're not even going to cuss her out. No, I said calmly. I'm done explaining myself to people who don't want the truth. And for the first time, I realized I truly meant it. A few days later, I signed the lease on a new apartment, a modern place overlooking the river, full of empty space and clean lines. A blank slate. I walked through the bare rooms, imagining sunlight, quiet mornings, and a life that didn't orbit around someone else's emotional needs. The only shared thing left between Andrew and me was the storage unit, a cold, dust-smelling space, holding old furniture from both sides of our families. I made an appointment to meet a delivery company there and haul my half away. I didn't intend to see him, but fate had its own twisted sense of timing. When I pulled into the storage facility, the morning light spilling across rows of identical metal doors, a figure stepped out from behind one of the pillars. Andrew. He looked smaller somehow, shoulders slumped, dark circles under his eyes, clothes too loose like he'd lost weight. A shell of who he'd been when he greeted me with champagne bottles and wedding plans. My feet hesitated for a fraction of a second, then kept moving. I wasn't afraid of him, just tired. He spoke first. I got the email saying you were clearing your stuff today. I unlocked the storage unit without acknowledging the tremor in his voice. So I came, he said. I see that I answered, lifting one of my grandfather's old chairs into the truck bed. My voice was steady, detached. He swallowed. I lost my job. I heard. It wasn't my fault. HR blew it out of proportion. Marissa, don't, I said sharply. Don't say her name to me again. He flinched. My parents are furious, he continued. They said I ruined everything. You did, I replied simply. His breath hitched like the truth physically hurt him. I'm a joke, he whispered. Everyone's talking about me. Everyone thinks I'm Andrew. I turned toward him fully for the first time. You're not a joke. You're just someone who made choices you didn't think would ever catch up to you. His eyes filled desperation, twisting his features. Don't you miss it? He choked out. Don't you miss us? There it was, the question I knew would come. I looked at him, the unraveling man I once planned to marry, and felt the most unexpected thing of all. Absolutely nothing. No, I said softly. I don't. He stared at me like I'd stabbed him. I miss the woman I was before you lied to me, I continued. Before you made me small. Before I stopped recognizing myself. I don't miss us. I miss me. Silence stretched between us, heavy but clean. Final. I lifted the last chair into the truck, closed the door, and dusted off my hands. I wish you well, I said gently, and I hope one day you learn something from this. But don't contact me again. I got into the truck, started the engine, and drove away without a glance in the mirror. I didn't need to see if he broke down. I didn't need to see if he watched me go. He was already in my past. And for the first time in a long, long time, my future felt wide open. My new apartment smelled like fresh paint and possibility. I spent the first night sitting on the floor with a takeout container watching the city lights flicker across the river. Every sound was new. Every shadow belonged only to me. The silence didn't feel empty anymore. It felt earned. For the first time in years, I slept without waking to someone else's breathing or someone else's expectations. No wedding countdown. No emotional minefield waiting in the next room. No pretending. Just me. The following week settled into a strange rhythm. I worked unpacked boxes slowly and relearned the rituals of living alone. Coffee tasted better. The mornings felt wider. Even choosing a new set of dishes in a store felt like reclaiming territory I hadn't realized I'd lost. And yet a small part of me braced every time my phone buzzed, half expecting Andrew to break the silence, to try one more time to drag me back into his orbit. But he didn't, not at first. It happened on a Wednesday evening. I was coming home from work, keys in one hand, a small bouquet of yellow daisies in the other, a gift to myself because I could. I found a note taped to my apartment door. His handwriting. My stomach tightened, not from fear, but from something colder, exhaustion. I peeled the note off and read it. V, I need to talk to you. One last time, please. A. I stood there for a long moment staring at the looping letters. He knew where I lived now. That alone told me this wasn't over for him. I took the note inside, set it on the counter, and made tea. I didn't panic. I didn't call Danielle. I didn't crumble. I simply waited. The knock came 20 minutes later. I opened the door. There he was. Andrew stood in the doorway like a shadow of a memory, thinner, unshaven, hollow-eyed. He looked like someone who had been sleepwalking for weeks. His suit was wrinkled, his hair unkempt, but his eyes were full of something between regret and desperation. Victoria, he said softly. I stepped aside without inviting him in, but allowed him to enter. The contrast between him and the serene apartment felt almost theatrical. He looked around at the minimal furniture, the soft lamps, the river view. This place is different. It's mine, I said simply. He swallowed hard. I know I shouldn't be here, but I had to try. I can't stop thinking about you, about us. There was a time when those words would have undone me. Now they barely scratch the surface. Andrew, the wedding was 6 weeks ago. I know. And I'm still waking up every day looking for you. His voice cracked. I'm still hoping I'll hear your keys in the door. You're hoping for the woman who planned your wedding, I interrupted gently. Not the woman standing in front of you. He winced like I'd slapped him. I messed up, he blurted. I know that. I ruined everything. I was stupid. I was selfish. I thought I'd never lose you. You already had, I said quietly, long before you realized it. He stepped closer. Can't we just talk? Can't we try? We were together for 5 years. Doesn't that mean anything? It does, I answered. It means I loved you long enough to know exactly who you became. His breath stuttered. I'm trying to change. Maybe you will, I said. But I'm not staying to watch. Something inside him cracked, not visibly, not dramatically, just a small, collapsing shift behind his eyes. He rubbed his forehead, pacing once before facing me again. Do you ever think about last year? He asked quietly. Watching movies on the couch, cooking together, planning vacations. Do you ever miss that? He looked at me like he was begging for oxygen. I didn't hesitate. No. His face crumpled. I miss myself, I continued. I miss the version of me before I spent years shrinking to fit inside someone else's comfort zone. I miss the woman I was before your lies started shaping my world. He opened his mouth, then closed it. His shoulders sagged. I'm sorry, he whispered. I know it doesn't fix anything. But I am. I know you are, I said softly. But sorry doesn't rebuild trust. It doesn't erase the messages. It doesn't give me back the future I thought I was walking into. He looked down defeated. Tell me what I'm supposed to do, he murmured. Tell me how to move on. I exhaled slowly. You stop waiting for me to save you. I'm not your anchor anymore. The silence between us felt final, like a curtain lowering. He nodded once, a tiny broken gesture of acceptance. I guess this is goodbye, he said. It already was, I replied. He didn't argue. He didn't beg again. He simply turned and walked out of my apartment, closing the door behind him, with a soft, hollow click that sounded too familiar. But this time it wasn't an ending that crushed me. It was an ending that freed me. I stood alone in my living room, the twilight spilling across the river, my apartment glowing in warm lamplight. My breath came easily. My pulse was steady. I set the daisies in a vase. Their soft yellow petals caught the fading sun. There was no ache, no longing, no grief that clung to my ribs. Just peace. The kind you only find after surviving a storm you never asked to walk through. The kind you don't apologize for. The kind you protect. The next morning I woke up before my alarm. Pale dawn light spilled across my ceiling, soft and clean, like the start of something that hadn't existed before. For a moment I stayed under the covers, listening to the quiet hum of the river outside my window. It sounded like breathing, like the world reminding me it was still here, that I was still here. I made coffee slowly, deliberately, the way I used to before life became a checklist of wedding tasks and emotional triage. The scent curled through the apartment, warm and grounding. I sat by the window with my mug cupped between my hands, legs drawn up to my chest, watching boats drift lazily across the water. Peace didn't feel like a grand revelation. It felt like the absence of weight. A week passed, and then another. Work settled into routine. Evenings filled with small pleasures, cooking dinner, watering my balcony plants, reading novels I hadn't touched in years. Danielle came over on weekends dropping off pastries, or demanding we watch the trashiest reality TV she could find. One night she sat cross-legged on my couch, chewing on a lopsided croissant. So she said, now that you've closed the Andrew chapter. Any plans for the Victoria sequel? I laughed. Can I enjoy the intermission first? She threw a pillow at me. Fine. But your sequel better be juicier than the prequel. But truthfully, I wasn't thinking about sequels, or men, or relationships. The universe had handed me a hard reset button, and I intended to use it properly, slowly, intentionally, without rushing to fill the silence with someone else's voice. Still, life has a funny way of nudging you, even when you're not looking. It happened on a Tuesday. I was leaving work late, the office mostly empty, except for the cleaning crew and one other person, the new consultant on our team, Liam Hart. I barely knew him beyond polite hallway nods and overheard bits of meetings. But as I stepped into the elevator, he jogged up and caught the door with one hand. Thanks, he said, slightly breathless. He pressed the lobby button, then shot me an apologetic smile. Long day. Long month, I murmured. He chuckled softly. I know the feeling. We rode in comfortable silence. Not awkward, not expectant, just human. As we reached the ground floor, he turned toward me. "For what it's worth," he said, "you seem lighter lately." I blinked. Lighter. Yeah. Not in a superficial way. Just like you're carrying less. He shrugged, rubbing the back of his neck. "Sorry if that sounds weird. I notice things. Occupational hazard." I didn't know what occupational hazard meant in his case, but the observation landed deeper than he realized. "Thank you," I said. "I think I am." He held the door open as we stepped outside. The air was cool, streetlights flickering on one by one. My breath fogged faintly in the air. "Have a good night, Victoria," he said, before walking toward the parking lot. I watched his figure fade into the soft golden glow of the street lamps. Not with interest, not with longing, just with a quiet, grounded awareness. The world had possibilities again. But I wasn't ready, and that was okay. The following Saturday, I decided to visit my parents. I hadn't told them the whole truth yet. I'd given them the edited version. The wedding was called off, long story. I'll explain someday when it hurts less. But 3 months had passed. The ache was gone. The story wasn't raw anymore. It was just a story. When I arrived, my mother hugged me so tightly I nearly lost my breath. My father placed a gentle hand on my shoulder, wordless but warm. We sat around the dining table while I told them everything slowly without bitterness. My mother's eyes glistened. My father's jaw clenched in that quiet, protective way. When I finished, my father said, "You did what you had to do, and I'm proud of you." It was simple. It healed something quiet inside me. On the way back home, I took the long route along the river. Lights reflected on the water like scattered gold. A couple held hands on a bench. A runner listened to music. A dog barked at ducks. And somewhere between the bridge and my street, I realized something that made me stop walking. I didn't feel broken. Not even a little. I wasn't surviving anymore. I was living. And it wasn't because I'd moved to a new place or cut ties with him or rebuilt my routine. It was because I'd finally remembered a truth I'd forgotten. My life belongs to me. All of it. The choices, the mistakes, the heartbreaks, the joys, the calm mornings, the possible futures. I got home, put the daisies I'd bought earlier into a vase, and stood back. They looked bright, alive, whole, the same way I felt. I curled up on my couch that night, a blanket draped over my legs, the city glowing outside my window. I thought of the girl I was before Andrew and the woman I became because of leaving him. I didn't mourn the years I spent loving him. I didn't resent the wedding that never happened. Every piece of it brought me to this exact moment, a quiet apartment, an open future, a peaceful heartbeat, and that more than anything felt like winning. 3 months later, the river outside my window glittered like scattered diamonds in the late afternoon sun. It was one of those soft, quiet days where nothing dramatic happens yet. Something inside you shifts anyway, like the universe finally exhales after holding its breath too long. I was arranging new books on my shelf when my phone buzzed. A number I hadn't seen in a long time, a number I didn't recognize yet instantly understood. For a moment, I simply stared at the screen, letting it vibrate once, twice, then go silent. A few seconds later, a voicemail notification appeared. I didn't open it. Instead, I slid the phone into the drawer where my old planner lived, the one covered in wedding notes I never bothered to throw away but no longer needed to revisit. The drawer closed with a soft thump, final, without being dramatic. The past had tried to reach me. I let it go to voicemail. I returned to my books. Later that evening, I met Danielle at a small, open-air cafe near the water. Lanterns hung from the trees, swaying in the breeze, casting warm circles of light across the wooden tables. She raised her glass the moment I sat down. "To you," she said, "because I haven't seen you glow like this since ever." I clinked my glass against hers. "To good friends. And clean slates." She smirked. "And maybe new possibilities." I rolled my eyes. "Danielle, what I'm just saying, you've been walking around like a woman who maybe screened a cute coworker's smile into her brain recently." I laughed loudly enough that the couple at the next table turned. "I'm not dating anyone. I'm not looking for anyone. I'm not even thinking about it," she teased. I considered that for a moment. "Not exactly," I admitted, "just not rushing." Fair. We ate fries and talked about everything except trauma and weddings. The music was soft, the night warm enough that I didn't need the jacket I brought. When we parted ways, she hugged me long and tight. "You did good," she whispered. When I got home, the city lights shimmered across the river like a quiet applause. I stepped out onto my small balcony, feeling the cool air brush across my face. Somewhere below, a cyclist's bell chimed. A boat horn echoed in the distance. My life didn't feel like a reclaimed thing anymore. It felt like a new thing, One I was building from the ground up, roof first walls, second foundation, glasses because I could afford to do it in whatever order I wanted now. There was no timeline, no deadline, no aisle waiting for me at the end. Inside my apartment, my phone buzzed again. A text from Liam. Hope your day wasn't too chaotic. Saw a nice bookstore near your building, made me think of you. Coffee sometime? No pressure. For a long moment, I stood in the doorway of my balcony, letting the night breeze tangle through my hair. I didn't feel nervous. I didn't feel doubtful. I didn't feel pulled back into old patterns of rushing or pleasing. I felt steady. I typed back, maybe, but not tonight. Hope you're well too. And that was enough. I set the phone face down, turned off the lamp, and sat on the balcony floor with my knees tucked to my chest. The river moved below me, soft and endless like a promise I hadn't fully unwrapped yet. The greatest love story I had now was with myself. The version of me who walked away. The version of me who survived. The version of me who learned how to stay soft without being stepped on. The version of me who remembered finally that she was whole long before anyone tried to break her. I breathed in deeply, feeling my lungs fill with the warm living air of a quiet city night. I had lost a wedding. I had lost a man. I had lost a future I once